Here in the top left, we have the text given to us. And the first thing we should try to do is to understand the problem. And I have read it a few times, and I think I have a good understanding that what we need to do is to create a script that can generate names for us. The first paragraph here gives a context of why we need to do it. We are playing games with friends, and we need to create characters there where they should have a full name which has a first and last name, and we want the script to generate that for us. And then in the second paragraph it actually tells us exactly what we need to do. And let us take a look, because it says here, the script shall work as follows. You shall create two lists, one for first names and one for last names. So that is something that we must do. These are then sent as arguments to a function that randomly pick one name from each list. And okay, so they're gonna send as arguments to a function that randomly pick names from each list. They are combined, right? So they're going to be combined into a full name and returned as a string. And it's important here that it's not returned as a list, it shall be returned as a string. And then we should try it by calling it and displaying the result on the screen. So we can see here the second paragraph, there are a lot of information that we need to take into account when we're creating our scripts. So I'll start by creating the main function. And what do we need to do here? It says here that we must create two lists. So I'll have that as my first thing to do. And after that, these two lists are going to be sent as arguments to a function that pick two of them, one from each list, and create the full names. Alright, we're going to call a new function here. I'm going to call it create name, for example. And we'll add that function here in a second. I just want to finish up the main function first, because it tells us a little bit further down here that we shall display the result on the screen. So let us add that before we forget it. Alright, so let's add some arrows here. And now let's create this function, create name. And what shall we do in this function then? It says here something about that we should randomly pick two names, one first name and one last name. So we can do that by generating two numbers and using those numbers as indexes in the lists. And when we have those two numbers, we can use them as index to pick one first name and one last name. So that's the next thing that we're going to do. Right, so now we have picked two. There's only one thing left for us to do, and that is to build a full name. So now that we have our plan here, let's see and go over it again. Alright, so when we come to the main function, we create two lists with names, one for the first names and one for the last names. Then we call this function sending these two lists as arguments. And what do we do in here? We pick two random numbers. We use those two numbers as indexes when we pick a first name and a last name. We combine them into a full name, that is what is returned, and then we display that full name on the screen. And I think This will help us when we're going to implement it in code, which we will do in the implementation video.